Now, the UK government may be reluctant to talk about life beyond the lockdown right now, but others are more willing to discuss it. Nicola Sturgeon has already laid out some of her thinking this week, and today the Mayor of Greater Manchester wants to do the same. So we can speak now to Andy Burnham. Thank you for being on the programme. Just before we get to your plans, if you like, for trying to ease the lockdown, the North West may be emerging as a new hotspot for coronavirus. I know that you've spoken out before about shortages of protective equipment in the North West, the difficulties in getting your hands on it in Greater Manchester. Are you ready?
Well, it's certainly still a challenging situation, but the way in which Greater Manchester and the North West has responded has been magnificent, to be honest. The health service is coping and there is capacity in the health service. And I've had a team working to bring in more protective equipment from around the world, actually. So Greater Manchester has got supplies now, additional to the supplies coming from the government. So it's tough, but we are working hard and we're getting through it.
Now, Boris Johnson will be back at work from tomorrow, and of course he's going to face some pretty career-defining decisions about how and when to change the lockdown measures that are currently in place. I know this is something that you've been thinking about as well. What's your view on how it should be done?
Well, Sophie, it's not a call for an early lifting of the lockdown. Figures we saw yesterday are really difficult. So, I'm not necessarily saying that we have to move forward now. But what I would say, though, is that Keir Starmer is right to call for an open debate about when and how. So on that second question, how, the two main ideas that have been put forward are a regional approach to lifting it or a sectoral approach. I see problems with both of those. A region by region approach would be unworkable in my view, but a sectoral approach would possibly be unfair on businesses in certain parts of the economy. For instance, hospitality, just to say to bars, restaurants, and other leisure or entertainment venues that you'll be last and it may be next year, just really isn't a message that they can work with. So what I'm saying is, let's have a standards-led approach to this, i.e. permission to open is linked to businesses' ability to operate safe working standards and social distancing. So that gives everybody a route back to work. But it might mean perhaps that they have to limit the number of their employees in work to begin with. And I think that is a better way to approach the release from lockdown than the other ideas that have been circulating so far.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is that, for example, pubs or restaurants could open much earlier than most people are expecting if they can prove that they can be done in a socially distanced way?
Yeah, if you take a standards-led approach, you're putting health and safety at the heart of this release from lockdown. And that's the way to go in my view. And it would be overseen by the Health and Safety Executive. But yes, it would allow businesses in all parts of the economy to innovate, perhaps to change the way they work, limit the number of employees that they have in work, but at least it would give them a route back. And I'm worried that if we're going down the sectoral approach, it could have heavy consequences for a city like Manchester or, say, Blackpool, a town that really depends upon tourism and hospitality. So the impact of a sectoral approach could hit certain places hard. So what I'm saying to the Prime Minister is, think about a standards-led approach and actually create a National Recovery Council, because we all need to have a voice in this debate. These decisions that you are about to take are crucial for the economy of the northwest of England, and we need to be in the room debating it with you.
At the same time, though, there's risks attached to this as well, aren't they? Businesses have got a vested interest in reopening. How would you check that they're continuing to follow the guidelines?
Well, I would have this overseen by the Health and Safety Executive. So, if people are making complaints that procedures aren't being followed, that there can be an investigation and people can be required to close again. And we saw that when we went into lockdown, a lot of confusion and actually some breaching of the standards. So we don't want to see that again. We need to put safety at the heart of this, but then have it overseen by the Health and Safety Executive working with Public Health England. But beyond safety, Sophie, as well, we need to start thinking about building a better economy, building back better. So one of the other ideas I would put forward today is that ongoing government support for businesses should be linked to good employment standards, and particularly payment of the real living wage. Many of us have been at home while other people have been out there running the country in supermarkets, in care homes and other places, warehouses. and they are the lowest paid people in society. And I don't feel at all comfortable with that. And I think coming from this, we should say ongoing government support for businesses should be linked to good employment and very specifically payment of the real living wage. I believe in this country for the last 20 years, we've been overpaying people at the top of organisations and underpaying people at the bottom. And I think we need a real national commitment to build back better and recognise that those minimum wage heroes who've been out there working for us all need a much better deal than the one they've had in recent years.
Now, the briefings that some journalists have been getting about the state of mind of Boris Johnson is that he appears to be someone whose big priority is keeping the infection levels low, avoiding a second peak. I was interested to hear you talking there about, some of the industries around Manchester or Blackpool. Do you think the government is right to be so cautious?
Yes, I think the government is right to be very cautious because, the worst of all worlds would be an early release, unmanaged release, that then saw the virus spreading again in parts of the country. I don't think the government could or should take any risks in that direction. So I think the Prime Minister is right to have cautious instincts, as is the Health Secretary. But let's use this time to debate properly and agree how we are going to move from the position that we're in at the moment. I think Keir Starmer is right to say the public need a sense of that, because otherwise people are losing hope and they can't see where we're going. They need to see that light at the end of the tunnel, even if it is some time away. At least you're being honest with people about how we're going to move forward.
At the same time, though, do you have any concerns that if the government does start spelling out more detail about how it could ease the lockdown, it may mean that people effectively don't adhere to the proposals?
There is a risk of that. But I would say if they answer that question a bit more fully about when this would happen, then at least people would be able to say, OK, well, nothing's going to change for so long. So at least we have to kind of get back down to observing the rules. But then they'd have a sense of it changing at a certain point. And I think that would create more discipline around the whole process, to be honest, Sophie. So we do need to start answering some of these questions now. We do need to get people ready for living in a very different way. For instance, I'm planning to have social distancing on public transport. So things aren't going to be the same. We need to be honest with the public about all of that. But I think the time is now to start having those debates. And even if there's a date sometime in May or June when measures will be eased, at least people will know and they can start to plan for that.
And just finally, you were Health Secretary in 2009 and in 2010, at a time when a pandemic was right at the top of the government's risk register. And yet it looks as if the advice and the plans that were in place at the time, which remained in place right up until coronavirus hit, didn't involve a lockdown or widespread social distancing. A 2011 document said it would not be possible to stop the spread of a virus. Have we been unprepared for this kind of event for quite a long time?
Well, you're right. I mean, there was a lot of work on pandemic planning in the government that I was in, and we dealt with one, swine flu, and the official inquiry into that said it was highly satisfactory. I think we're going to see in time an inquiry into this one say that things could and should have been done better. And I've been quite supportive of some of the way the Health Secretary has handled things, but I think his predecessor, the former Health Secretary, has some questions to answer, because I don't believe the plans that were put in place were as robust as they needed to be. But those questions are for another day. And, it's not for now. The now is to get through this, get the country on a path that it can support, and give all businesses in the economy a chance to come back. But let's come back better. Let's come back with higher standards for our workers, recognising what they've been doing for us in these recent times.
OK, Andy Burnham, thank you very much for being on the programme and spelling out some of your ideas. Much appreciated.
Thank you.